Well, welcome back to Fund Your Future with DRS. And we've got a special guest here with us today. For our podcast, we like to dive into topics that can help you budget better and save money. And today we have a great guest here with us to talk a little bit about a topic that you may not know about. So, Joe, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, my name is Joe, and I work in unclaimed property at the Washington State Department of Revenue as the Unclaimed Property Claims and Outreach Manager. I've worked at the Department of Revenue for more than 19 years, and I spent around 4 years in unclaimed property and the last year as the manager.
And what exactly is an unclaimed property? Because I don't think a lot of people realize that they might have some unclaimed property out there.
So unclaimed property, I believe, is the best part about Department of Revenue. We're working on giving money away or reuniting people with their money. We currently hold $1.8 billion in unclaimed property, and we're looking for the rightful owners to claim. Basically, unclaimed property is property held by an organization who's not had contact with the owner for an extended period of time. Typical unclaimed property that we might have is bank accounts, uncashed checks, money orders, credit balances, traveler's checks, stocks and dividends, life insurance policies, refund rebates, utility deposits, and payroll. Usually unclaimed property is money, but we can also get things like coins or jewelry from a safe deposit box. Basically, any business that might owe you money has to be turned over to unclaimed property. And usually it's considered abandoned after 3 years and it's turned over to the state. And then something to add to, a lot of people actually think unclaimed property is a scam, but we're not. Unclaimed property, unclaimed property is part of the Department of Revenue, which is a state agency and a state-run program. Our whole purpose is to act as a consumer protection program for the public. This is basically property or money you may not know was due to you, and so we're a central repository so people can come and look up and see if they have unclaimed property.
That's really cool. So if I wanted to find out if I had any of this unclaimed property or missing money, where would I go? What would I do?
You're going to hear me say this a lot, but go to claimyourcash.org. So claimyourcash.org, and you can search your name or search a family member's name, or if you have a business, you can search your business name, search your friends to see if they have missing money. The results show kind of a list of properties that might match or that match your search. And sometimes you have more than one property, and it's a lot like an online shopping cart where you can select each property and then add it to your cart, and then it will take you to the next page where you kind of fill out an online form. Yeah, and then like I said, go to claimyourcash.org, search for that property. Not just once, but come back, at least once a year. We get property. Most of the properties turned over to us around October. It's usually published on our website sometime around January, February. But we also get, businesses trickling in, reporting late or reporting really early. So you never know when we're going to have a new property. So I would say check back every 6 months or so.
Joe, is that website just for property that was, I don't know what the right word is, abandoned in Washington? Or does that cover a broader group of states?
So that is just for Washington. So if you've lived in another state, there's actually another website out there. It's called missingmoney.com, and you can search by state. It's actually really similar to our current website. It's basically the same vendor. So our vendor has, they contract with a lot of other states, and so everybody's unclaimed property can be listed there. But then again, the claim process is also different for every state. So make sure and follow the instructions on missingmoney.com.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's cool. I know that I go in and check my name and like my family's name every couple of months just to kind of see what's on there. Yeah, and then how long does the process take? So if I see that I have a claim on there and submit all of my information, how long would it take for me to expect to see a check in the mail?
So something I missed on the last question, but once you find property and you fill out the online form, usually what happens is you'll get an email with a claim form to sign and, documentation that you might have to provide, like, let's say, like a copy of a photo ID or proof of an old address. Once you upload that documentation on our website, it takes about 6 to 8 weeks for you to get your money once you've submitted that. We're working the claims in the order to receive, and so we try and get them out as quickly as possible. But it is taking about 6 to 8 weeks. If there's more documentation needed, we will contact you. You'll usually be notified by email, and then you can always check your claim progress on our website, claimyourcash.org.
Cool. What's the average claim amount that you guys see?
So the average dollar of unclaimed property is right around $131.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah. But keep in mind that amount, it can actually fluctuate. I mean, we have people that only have a dollar, but then we also have people that have millions of dollars. So that's an average, but you have to keep in mind that some of those are some huge amounts.
Joe, how do people lose $1 million?
That's a great question. It could happen. I mean, Sometimes you might have stocks, that kind of things. And if you just haven't done anything on your account, they'll usually a business will send what's called a due diligence letter and let you know that you have money that, you need to do something on your account, or else it's going to be turned over to unclaimed property. Sometimes you move, you don't get that letter. Anything can happen, but luckily we are here. We have that money, and we're not going to give it away to anybody. We're going to give it to the right person.
Yeah. And even if the person dies, right, then it goes to their heirs.
Yes. Then it goes to their heirs.
Cool. Can you share some stories about people who've claimed some of these larger amounts?
Yeah, so I can share you some stories, not like individual people, just because that's not public information, but I have some kind of general stories. We did have someone that, reach out to us recently. One of his family members found out they had, a small amount of property. And then we did a search for him, and he had $5,700 that belonged to him. So that's all money that he had no knowledge of, didn't know anything about unclaimed property. But a family member basically said, hey, check out this website. We also had someone call in around Thanksgiving. They received a letter from a business saying they were turning over about $2,500 worth of money to unclaimed property. That would be that due diligence letter. They'd already sent it. She called, and we searched her name. We found the property she was referring to. But like I said, sometimes it takes a little while to reconcile a report. The money comes in October, but we got the report. We have to match everything up. Sometimes we're in touch with the holder because there's issues with the report, those kind of things. And so we had the money, but we weren't able to refund it to her right away. And she was really hoping to use that money for Christmas. But we said, we'll let you know as soon as it's available, but we could do another search for her and see if there's any other properties. And we did a search, and we found another $1,700 worth of property.
Wow.
She was really happy. Not only is she getting the money that she thought she was going to get, but she's getting another $1,700. So we set up a claim for those properties. She submitted the documentation, or the proof documentation. She got $1,700 back way before Christmas. And then a few weeks later, we were able to do another claim and do another $2,500. That was a good story, I thought. And then some kind of, more general stories. But, we had an individual on food stamps, and he received $100,000 from an unknown class action lawsuit. So, that's something, you just never know with those class action lawsuits. And then some other good things that we've done recently. We recently returned over $100,000 to a nonprofit organization. We returned another $118,000 to a school district. And then we just returned another $66,000 to a local mental health and substance abuse center.
Very cool. So it's obviously not just individuals, it's obviously companies too that can have unclaimed property.
Yes. So check your business name too when you go to claimyourcash.org.
Yeah, perfect.
Joe, it sounds like you have an amazing job. One, that would be my first take. But
yeah.
Do you see business pick up around the holidays? People looking for more cash? You mentioned like 6 to 8 weeks is kind of the normal time period. Does it take longer when businesses are putting more information into the system in October because people are likely looking in November, December for money? Is that sort of the typical cycle for you?
Honestly, we're pretty steady all year long. We kind of have different things to promote things or promote unclaimed property. I mean, we also have a couple of full-time locators. Their job is to look at the property in our database that have the most value or highest dollar value, and then they work to return those property to the owners. And then we also go to different outreach events. So like, last year we attended Hoop Fest in Spokane, sponsored some basketball courts. So we had kind of our logo on some basketball hoops. We went to Lake Fair in Olympia, Washington State Fair in Puyallup, Tacoma Food and Gift Festival. So like, as we go to those things, and that's kind of throughout the year, things pick up. And then we also contract with a marketing vendor right now. And so, we have radio advertising, radio interviews. We've got radio advertising on Spanish speaking radio stations. We post things on social media. And then last year during Mariners games, we had commercials. I'm not sure if everybody knew that. And we're going to have commercials again this year. So
yeah, I was going to say, I think I've even seen the commercials in the evening while I've been watching Jeopardy.
So we're pretty busy and pretty steady all year round. Right now, 6 to 8 weeks fluctuates too. Sometimes we have staff that leave and have to hire new staff. So sometimes that can kind of delay things. But yeah, I mean, we're pretty busy all year round.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about how obviously people can have missing money, but there is, as you had mentioned before, this other side, this actual unclaimed property and items and things like that, like coins and jewelry. And how exactly does the state get those items?
So if, you or one of your family members has a safety deposit box and the rent has not been paid on it for 5 years, the contents are actually turned over to the state of Washington. We do only accept safe deposit box contents from financial institutions. So, I mean, we're not accepting like lost and found or any items from storage facilities. So that doesn't come to us. But once we receive the contents, we currently hold it for 2 or more years. And then actually prior to this year, we were only holding it for 1 year. If the owner doesn't claim the items, we are required to actually sell those contents at a public auction. And then at that point, the owners or their heirs can come forward at any time to claim the cash value of the items after they're sold. Our last auction was in November of 2022, and typically it's like collectible coins, collectible currency, jewelry, watches, stamps, silver bars, gold bars, sports cards, collectibles, those kind of things. We do not auction like land, vehicles, or any other property. So, and we do try before we have an auction. I mean, we try really hard. Once we receive those contents and the report balances or reconciles, we do send out a letter to everybody at their last known address saying, hey, we have this property now, come forward and claim it. And then we usually try and send something out right before the auction as well. And then, when it's something that might, sometimes if it has a really high value, we might have one of our locators try and get in touch with them before we sell it as well.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, that's fantastic.
So my takeaways are, it's not a scam.
Right.
I think that's the first thing we want people to absolutely know. Claim your cash. And it's something that you should look at occasionally. I mean, I kind of thought initially like, I would just look at it once, I'd never look at it again. But as you're saying, things are coming into this database all the time.
Yes, they are. Like I said, most of it's reported around October, but it takes a while to reconcile reports too. So, businesses can kind of report late or early. So we're getting property throughout the year. And, something I want to add too is, I've worked some of these booths, these outreach events at like Lake Fair and Washington State Fair, and people will walk by and I'll kind of try and educate them on unclaimed property. And how many people, one, will think it's a scam, but two, people will be like, no, I don't have unclaimed property. Well, how do you know? Well, I'm good with my finances. That's not necessarily the reason why the money has come to us. I mean, you could have been, the business didn't send you a due diligence letter, or maybe, something got lost in the mail. Like last year for me, I had air conditioning installed in my house, right? So 6 months later, I got a rebate check, not from the company that installed it and not the name of the air conditioner, but just another third-party company. And I got a check for like $500. Didn't know that was coming. Had no idea. I Googled it to make sure it was valid, and it was. But if I had just thought that was junk mail, that's $500 that could have came to unclaimed property.
Yeah.
Just because you're amazing with your finances, it does not mean that you don't have unclaimed property.
That's a really good example. I mean, especially I think as young people move around, you move from address to address and things might not follow you as much as you thought. And a deposit, a check that was late getting to you that you didn't even know was going to come. Yeah, those are really great examples. And I think really good reason to check back frequently. And I know, as Jenny said, seeing on TV commercials or seeing you in news articles, like you're out there trying to promote this and remind people that it's available. So I really appreciate that you're talking to us about it and reminding us as well. I know both Jenny and I have checked recently.
Yeah, I think it's great. And that's why we wanted to have you on the podcast, is for our listeners to know about this great service that's out there.
Yeah, I'm glad you have me. I want as many people as possible to go to claimyourcash.org and look for unclaimed property, because that's what we want to do. We want to get the money back to people.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear from our listeners, Jenny, if they found money, what they would do with it as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You probably get some interesting stories. I mean, you've already shared some interesting stories about people who were in dire financial straits and the life-changing ability to do that. But even just to buy a present for somebody or pay a debt off. I mean, there are all sorts of wonderful things you could do with found money.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's almost kind of like winning the lotto, but it's money that you didn't know about. But
exactly.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, if any of our listeners do find some unclaimed property, let us know. You can always email us at drs.podcasts@drs.wa.gov. Well, thank you so much, Joe. We really appreciate having you on the show here and
yeah, you're welcome.
Telling us about the Unclaimed Property program.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I actually have one more thing I wanted to talk about. So Unclaimed Property actually recently launched what we're calling the Money Match program that just launched in January. So this program is automatically returning unclaimed property to Washingtonians after verifying ownership without requiring the owner to file a claim or submit documentation. So basically, we're able to determine that this money is going to the person. And so at that point, In January, again, we just launched the program, but in January, we sent out around 2,000 letters letting people know that a check is going to be coming. And then actually the checks just went out in the mail yesterday. And there was a little over 1,800 of them. And we are hoping to kind of work through this, look at the process, and hopefully up it to maybe $10,000 next quarter and try and continue to do this every quarter.
Wow, that's great. And also a good reminder, not a scam.
Not a scam. Yes.
Not a scam.
Yes. Hopefully the letter's referencing our website and there's stuff all over it. We're trying to get the word out about this as much as possible. And so if anybody is out there too that received one of these checks, please do cash it. It is not a scam.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening, and now we'd love to hear from you. What topics would you like to hear about? What questions do you have for us? Send an email to drs.podcasts@drs.wa.gov. That's drspodcasts@drs.wa.gov. The Department of Retirement Systems provides this podcast as a public service, but it's neither a legal interpretation nor a statement of DRS policy. References to any specific product or entity do not constitute an endorsement or recommendation. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Views and opinions expressed by DRS employees are those of the employees and do not necessarily reflect the view of DRS or any of its officials.